Hey everyone, welcome to Jesus the Legend. I'm really excited about today's episode because we've got Pastor Chris Mathis from the Summit Church in Edmonton joining us. Chris carries the amazing and contagious message of life-giving hope through Jesus. Shelly and I have known Chris and his wife Nikki, who by the way is an incredible worship leader, so if you don't know who she is, check her out. You will not be disappointed. But I think we've known them since around 2010. We absolutely love them. We're super proud of all that God's done and continues to do through their lives in ministry. Chris and Nikki both have hearts to see people understand their true identity as beloved sons and daughters of God and to live out of that place of peace and abundance that Jesus promised. They're also passionate about church planting and oversee the Summit Church Movement, a grassroots network they founded back in 2009 in Florida. This conversation is going to be rich. I know you're going to love it, so let's jump in.
Welcome to Jesus the Legend, a podcast exploring the profound truth that all Scripture points to Christ. From Genesis to Revelation, every story, prophecy, and promise finds its fulfillment in Jesus. Join us on this journey, discovering how reading through the lens of Christ transforms our understanding, deepens our relationship, and reveals God's redemptive plan for all of humanity. And now, here's your host, Ken Sullivan.
Hey man, Chris Mathis, I can't believe you're here. This is awesome.
This is fun, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. It's been, I went back to look through my photos on Facebook to see when it was we actually met. And can you believe, I think it was 2010. Can you believe that?
It would have been, yeah, because Micaiah, I think, was only like a year old, and she's 16 now. So
that's wild. Because, the first time we spoke at your church, you were in that strip mall. So was that the first? Was that the first location?
One. That was the first one we just planted, and I think I met you like literally 3 months after we planted.
That is, well, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but this was, okay, so anybody that's listening, we're going back, Facebook wasn't the same 15 years ago. It was different, and it wasn't quite as aggressive as it is now. And I remember I get this message from this guy called Chris Mathis in Florida, and he says, inviting me to like his church. And I'm thinking, who's this Chris Mathis dude? Like, and how did he find out about me? And then I said to Shelly, this guy down in Florida is asking me to like his church. And at that point, we were just full-time itinerant ministry, just traveling and speaking. And I thought, if he's going to be brazen enough to ask me to like his church, I'm going to be brazen enough to ask him if I can preach. And so and then you're like, yes. So within a short period of time, we're packing up our little kids. We're driving down to speak at your church. Neither of us know
random
each other.
guy's church. Yeah.
And not only that, we're staying at your house. And I've always thought about that. I thought, I don't know who's crazier, like us going down. You could have been murders. We could have been murders. Nobody knew. But I'm glad it all worked out, man. Because
the risks you take for Jesus, huh? Just and look at the kingdom connections that it's become, right?
It's so good, man. So for anybody that's listening, we love Chris and Nikki. We've known them for 15 years. We love everything that you guys are doing. Always loved what you guys are doing. But we got chatting again. We kind of reconnected again, and you told me about your series on what is God really like. And so, of course, it's your stuff. So I went to listen to it, and dude, it was just so good, good. Which is kind of why, I've been doing secular work for a while, but preaching when people invite me and stuff. But not doing a ton of stuff, just like studying and just into the Word and stuff. And this podcast is really because I just couldn't stay silent anymore. When you're a preacher, you get like verbal constipation if you're not getting it out. But when I heard this, I'm like, man, I gotta see if Chris could squeeze out an hour or something for us to chat about this.
Man. Dude, it's been thank you for inviting me to do it. It's honestly refreshing reconnecting with you, Ken. We went, a lot of years where life goes on, and it's not that you don't have any intention not to connect, but busy life, kids, family, ministry, jobs, and yeah, but dude, having that phone call with you on the phone I told Nikki, I'm like, it's just so refreshing for my heart that there are other crazy people out there that can just have dialogue and have permission to just talk about the stuff that nobody talks about,
Right. And that's whether you agree with stuff or not. Because there's some stuff 100%. On that conversation we probably didn't agree eye to eye, but if we can't if we can't, I mean, obviously Jesus has to be the main thing. That's obvious.
Absolutely.
You know, the cross had to happen. The sin matters. Like all that stuff is foundational, but the other stuff, I just love talking about it, man. It's just fun.
Well, and for me too, I have not arrived. And so I'm constantly growing and falling more and more in love with Jesus and finding out, man, the depths of his love and the Father's heart for us. You know, there's still, I constantly can identify within my own heart, like areas of, man, that's still a little bit of legalism there in me. And being vulnerable enough to expose that and say, you know what, I haven't arrived. We're going to get to see his glory one day and realize, man, we were really far off from like how vast his love is, you know?
Oh man, it's so good. So can we just start with this? Cause you got to, I always, like any of my guests, I've tried to start off with their testimony because testimonies are so flippin' powerful, man. And I know you've got an amazing testimony. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of, we could start there and then we can get into this, the What Is God Really Like series. And that'd be great, man.
Yeah, for sure. Man, where do I start? Okay, we'll start with this. Teenage years, rebelled after my parents got a divorce, and I didn't know who I was. So I was trying to find out. I was an imposter, and I didn't know who I was. So I was pretending to be, you know, somebody that I wasn't. And that ends up, you know, being with the wrong crowd, wrong people. Yeah. But got into just, you know, drugs, alcohol, the whole deal. That came with, you know, some criminal activity as well. Ended up in 2003 getting arrested and having to do 10 months in a county jail. And it's in that county jail season, that 10 months, Jesus met me there, man. It was just unbelievable. Got baptized in the Holy Ghost in jail.
Bro, I'm gonna be crying. I'm gonna be crying before this podcast is out. I know. Okay,
it's all good. I'll cry with you. But dude, I'm just this, you know, 18-year-old kid that would spend hours a day in the Word, and I'm reading the Word, and it's coming alive in my heart. I get this identifying call that Jesus has called me to preach, and so I start right there, man. Dude, I started doing every day after a dinner. I would stand at the top of the dorm and I would yell as loud as I can, "It's church time! It's church time! It's church time!" Awesome. If anybody wants to hear the good news, come to my cell. And so, and those cells, you share a room with like 8 to 10 other guys, and there's bunk beds. And so, I got radically saved, and everybody knew it. I shook under the power of God for a few days, praying in tongues, couldn't stop it, didn't know what it was. People moved out of my room because of it. It freaked them out, and other people were attracted to it, so they moved in, and we'd break those bunk beds down, and I'd make pews, man, and I would preach my heart out, dude, for a whole 7.5 minutes, because I just preaching what I learned that day, right? So, but
there's a lot of sermons I heard that should have only been 7.5 minutes. Trust me.
That's right.
Probably a lot of mine, actually. Why did I go on for an hour and a half? I could have said that in 7 minutes.
No doubt. But that was kind of my training ground, man. Got out of there. And started working for a drug and alcohol rehab, and met Nikki there. She wasn't in the drug and alcohol rehab, by the way. Met her there. She was also just there and doing an internship for another ministry. So she started working with that ministry as well. Yeah, and then life goes on. We plant churches in Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Brazil. Ultimately, kind of had this, I think going back to initially mine and your connection, I always knew that God was calling us to Canada at some point. So my heart has always been open. What is the Lord doing in Canada? Yep. And I think that's what kind of led me to track you down on Facebook, you know.
That's crazy.
But yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's the nutshell story.
Yeah. So now here you are. You guys have church planted. You moved to, what has it been like, how long you've been in
7
Canada?
Years.
I was going to say 5. Okay, 7. Man, time flies. Holy mackerel.
It does, yeah.
And you've got the Summit Church in Edmonton, which is just amazing. Yeah. And then this whole message of the Father is like, you've got a real revelation on that. And I'm just going to say this, man. One thing I've always loved about you and Nikki is that, and I'm going to start crying. You guys have placed a higher level of importance on seeking truth more than any denominational thing, more than any trying to keep people happy. Not that you're out there trying to just tick people off, but like, I can honestly say in 15 years, I can sit here and say that I know that you guys, your heart is you want to know Jesus. And that's been the number one focus, regardless of who you who you make happy or not. And there's not a lot of people out there, especially in your position where you have stuff to lose. Like I find people, and this is probably just human nature. I might be this, I'm sure I'm the same way, but when your income depends on what you believe, sometimes it's harder for people to rethink things or step outside of that box. And this is where you are, your full-time ministry, and you guys have just been chasing after him, and wherever it goes, you're willing to go.
Yeah. You know, that's not that's not a difficult thing for me to do, Ken.
Right.
You know, I hear people say that to me often, you know, you got everything to lose, but I have everything to lose if I don't be authentic.
Yes.
You know, like if I'm not authentic, and when I encountered his love and he identified me, and I would be a fake and a phony and an imposter, and I couldn't sleep at night if I, you know, obviously you don't jump out off the you know, the diving board head first full in with everything that, you know, goes on in his brain and heart. Yeah, you got to use wisdom with it, and then you teach your congregation in the steps that they're ready for. You know, Jesus didn't come out and just give the full revelation, you know, to everybody. You know, he would actually do the opposite. He'd speak in parables, mysteries, you know, and just these things that would make people search for truth. And so, it's not been difficult for me in that regard, but can I share something real quick?
Listen, this is your dog and pony show, buddy. You share whatever you want.
I just want to kind of go back into, because I know that you talk about the What God Is Really Like series, and you're going to get me start crying here in a minute.
It's so good, man.
You go back to those days when I met you, man. Like, I don't think you understand the impact that you had on this whole journey. We were in my kitchen, and I think it might have been like the second or third time you were down with us. It wasn't the first. It was like after we'd gotten to know each other a little bit. I think we had moved to Crestview from Fort Walton, and we were kind of in the other building. And,
I remember this day, man. I remember it clear as day.
You were breaking down the gospel. And I'd never heard it. I've been in a revival culture my entire life.
Yeah.
I have been in this revival world, and I'm still in that world. Like I love the presence of God. I love going after it.
Yeah.
You know, but it was, the world I was in was so legalistic, and it was like everything was about you leaning in, you fasting, and if you do enough, then more of that glory will show up on, you know,
and
your next meeting.
And breaking through and the warfare.
100%. Oh, the warfare. How many Jericho marches I've done, and blowing shofars and waving flags. Like, I've done it all, man. And there's nothing wrong with those things, you know, to each his own. I love the artistic expressions of worship. I'm all about that. But for me, it was so laced in, you had to do so much, and it wasn't like the main message you'd preach, but it was laced in everything. Right. And I remember in my kitchen, you broke this whole free gift of sonship. You don't have to earn it, work for it. And it was the first time in my life I've ever heard something so scandalous. And I remember looking at Nikki, and Nikki looking at me, and looking at you. I'm like, and I remember saying this statement. I can't remember if it was me or Nikki that said this statement, but it resonated in my heart, because it was right. It was like, the statement was, Ken, if what you're saying is true, this changes everything.
I remember that, man.
Yeah, and you turned me on to guys like Rob Rufus. You turned me on to guys, you know, back then that I was like, this was so foreign to me, what they were preaching.
Yes.
But the resignation in my heart and aligning with, this is what the Father is really like. And I had such a different approach. I had Jesus with one personality and God, the Father, in a completely different personality.
Yes.
And somehow they were tied together because, you know, the works that Jesus did on the cross, displaying the Father's heart, but it didn't really ever mesh. And I found myself embracing Jesus one way and the Father a different way.
Yeah.
And other layers of years that went on, and you hear guys like Bill Johnson that helped bridge a lot of gaps with that, and other guys like John Crowder, and, you know, just different theologians too later on that you get turned on to, like Baxter Kruger. I mean, just, you know, over the years of man, just really learning what Dad's like.
Yes.
And I didn't know what Dad was like.
So good.
And I'm still learning, and
Yes.
it's still a journey, but man, I would not trade it. I wouldn't go back in a million years to what I had. But with all that, we've still kept our revival DNA. I think this message and the revival DNA are supposed to go hand in hand.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's not a lot of guys that are preaching this message have that revival edge that you and I have had.
They don't. A lot of them come from a very non-charismatic background.
Orthodox backgrounds.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And it's there's, because I've dove in really deep now, and a lot of the guys are guys and girls. I shouldn't say just guys and girls. Yeah, they're more of a traditional background. So they're coming at it from a different perspective. But dude, I don't think it has to be. This is terrible. Do you watch Seinfeld?
Nikki was a Seinfeld guy. I never was.
Okay.
I watched a lot more action stuff, killing and blood and guns. And
Well, so I start going down this road and see all my past as well, all that revival stuff. I wouldn't change that for anything either. I don't want to go back to that same mindset, but that encounter lifestyle, I don't ever want to leave that. And so I started going down this road, and one day I'm sitting in church and I'm like, oh man, I'm just seeing how rich some things are that I'd never seen before, and learning more stuff about God. And this is so weird, man. Inside of me, I was thinking, but I don't want to let go of that. Like I love this, but I don't want to, and I felt the Lord just come on me, and he said, it doesn't have to be this or that. It can be this 100%. And that. And I was like, it was like this freedom. This was probably 6 months ago, this freedom come over me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it can be all of it. Yeah. It's encounters, it's signs and wonders, it's believing for miracles, it's seeing healings, but it's also the richness of my dad who won't let go. Yeah. And when I screw up, I don't have to say, uh-oh, is he going to find out? I can run directly into his arms, and he's like there, man. And dude, it's just so beautiful. It's so big.
Yeah, it is big. And I'll never let go of the encounter side of. It's just a different approach. It's actually receiving what he's already poured out instead of working to get more of it.
Yes.
I think the deeper my theology goes in his love, the more open my heart becomes for encounter.
Yes.
And that's what I've found. And so we've stayed true to that over the years. As our messages changed drastically over the years. The one thing that has remained the same is we're presence people, man. Like worship is something that is very near and dear to our hearts, as you know, Nikki's being who she is as a worship leader.
Yeah.
But even our songs have changed. Like the theology behind what we're singing is completely changed.
There's a lot of stuff that I used to sing, and I'm like, I can't even do that anymore.
100%.
The good news, though, back then is I can honestly say, I'm not saying we're perfect, but our hearts were right. It's like we're seeking after God. It's just you're handed this theology that looks good, and scripturally you could support it and stuff. But now I look back, and I hope nobody gets offended by this, but it feels so surface. Now it's like these roots are just going so deep, man, so deep. And then you come up, I love what you earlier when you said about how you had Jesus sort of here and the Father was over here, and they didn't really mesh and everything. I remember in your series you talked about how do you reconcile the Old Testament God with the New Testament Jesus. Big. And you talked about shadow books, and you talked about Jesus isn't this isn't probably the exact quote, but you said something like Jesus isn't nicer in the New Testament, we just see him clearer.
He's just more clear.
So can you unpack that a little bit?
100%.
Like shadow books and
absolutely. And this was a big one for me when I was trying to reconcile this message. I'm like, reading in the Old Testament, it's like you see such a different nature that can be perceived to be different.
Yes.
But I think that we read it through the lens where we look at a lot of the Old Testament things. Like, let's take, for example, Abraham's sacrifice to Isaac. Was, the God's telling him, sacrifice your son. You look at that and you're like, well, what kind of nature would a father have to ask Abraham to do something like that?
Right.
But if you really dig into that story and you understand the cultural aspects of that day, and you look at what they worshipped, how they worshipped, child sacrifice was a normal part of life back then, worshiping other gods.
Right.
I started to really see and understand that God was actually just speaking in a language that Abraham would understand.
Yes.
Like it's not, we read these stories like they're factual, and we take God's nature and put that on God, and it has nothing to do with his nature. He's just getting down into humanity and speaking in a way that they can understand, that they will understand.
Yes.
And so I started looking at the Old Testament from a real Christological, like, a Christology of, everything points to Jesus.
Yes.
And so the Old Testament, man, they're all shadow books. They all point to Christ. The New Testament is not nicer. He's clear, as I mentioned in that series. But then you really dive in. Like I've just went in this whole series with Jonah. And that's kind of what's on my heart. It's just been fresh, right? Mm-hmm. Like Jonah was a prophet that God said, go to Nineveh, which is in Assyria. And in that day, they were enemies of Israel. They were, brutal in their war tactics. They were known for skinning their victims alive, putting them on torture poles and, surrounding cities that way that would basically promote fear and terror. Mm-hmm. And God shows up to Jonah and says, Jonah, I got an assignment for you. I want you to go to that people group and I want you to tell them about me.
Yes.
And Jonah runs. No, and here's why he didn't want to.
Yes.
Here's why he didn't want to. He was offended because those were supposed to be enemies of Israel, right? So the whole story, Jonah gets on a ship, swallowed by a whale, thrown overboard, vomited back up on shore. And it says the word of the Lord comes to Jonah the second time, and he goes, preaches, the whole city encounters the Lord. They all, turn from their wicked, evil ways. And Jonah makes a comical statement. He says, I knew this would happen. I knew your love and your mercy and your loving kindness. Like Jonah goes into this whole grace message. Yes. I knew this is what you're like. And so I think reconciling Jonah's attitude, I think, in his approach is very similar to many of ours, through the course of our life is like, we have this attitude of punish, destroy, you deserve, and God's nature and his mercy is reconciliation 100% of the time, no matter how evil it looks.
Yes.
Jonah was offended with that.
It's hilarious. Can you imagine today if God said, Chris, I want you to go preach, I don't know, just pick the nation, and your attitude is no, because I know you're going to save them. I'm not doing it.
I know you're going to save them. Yeah. I know you're I know the Father's heart is so loving and merciful, and you're going to save these people. So no, I'm not going to go.
That's crazy. So,
but that's one aspect. That's one aspect in the shadow books. But you can't get a clear picture of the Father's heart in the shadow books. Like you're not going to find out that God's nature by reading the book of Job only. You know, Christ comes on the back of several hundred years of silence.
Yes,
and reveals the Father's heart in the most religious culture that thought they knew everything about God and how to get to God. And that's when Jesus shows up and says, no, you don't know my Father. When you've seen me, you've seen my Father.
This is how I am.
Yeah.
I know. It's beautiful. It's so...
It is.
It's so life-changing. I said to someone, when you get into this, people say, now you're just cherry-picking Scripture. And I think we probably all do that to a certain extent. But this is the first time in my life I feel like I have the clearest plumb line to actually read Scripture, because it all has to come through the lens of Christ. Period.
Has to.
He was either God or he wasn't. And if he wasn't, then what are we doing here? And if he was, then let's take a look at the text. Every text is somehow revealing something about him or about us. Like you said, Jonah, when we read about Jonah, how many times do we secretly want that person to pay, right? They did something and they could pay. Like, they come in my house, I'm shooting them. It's just sort of this like, so I see myself in Jonah sometimes, which is
me too.
Crazy.
Me too. And it's a work in progress. Like, because I'm still that guy that has a shotgun by his bed, right? Like, so there's still a work in progress going on. But no, it is. It's so true. Like, there's, I think in all of us, we're trained, we're ingrained, like in just human North American life. Like, if you do good things happen to you. If you like, and it goes back to our childhood. Oh yeah. Like, if I got good grades, I got rewarded. If I got bad grades, I got punished. And
if you make your bed, you're getting $1. If you
100%,
don't, then you're grounded. Like, that's just
and we're ingrained in that, and we take that viewpoint into our theology when we start this journey with God, and we start, well, if that's the way life works, that must be the way God is. And it's totally not the way God is. God rewards you when you don't deserve it.
Right. And if anybody's listening, I think I can say this for both Chris and I. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We're not saying that he never punishes people. We're just saying that any punishment that comes from God is for the purpose of reconciliation, for the purpose of people being redeemed, for the purpose of people understanding who they are. It's not just to beat the crap out of us because we deserve it. He's not up there angry and saying, well, I feel good now that I spanked them. He's saying, there's a reason why I'm doing this. And so you can grow more into the likeness of me. And sometimes correction is needed, just like our own kids, right? If my kids did something really bad, I wouldn't just give them a candy. There'd probably be some sort of punishment there, but it's not.
I don't even like to use the word punishment anymore.
I know.
I'm trying to take that word completely out of my vocabulary when it comes to God. I like to call it the correction that's always meant to redirect you.
Yes. And I think in the Greek, there's a couple different words for punishment, and unfortunately, we read our own kind of ideas into that word. But one of the Greek words is punishment for the purpose of bettering the person, right? It's not just
bettering the person.
It's just not to it's not to beat the crap out of them, right? So
and we'll use Jonah's situation, right? Like he's swallowed up in the belly of the whale, and that wasn't God's punishment. It was actually God's course correction for him.
Yes. Yeah.
Not that there's not consequences. We know the scripture teaches he corrects those who he loves.
I've learned to be able to use that word maybe with a different mindset. So I'm not thinking about it the way I used to. It's a different kind of concept. But you mentioned, I think it was A.W. Tozer said, the most important thought you'll ever have is what you think about God.
Everything flows from that.
Dude, that I don't know if I don't remember reading that quote. I might have at some point, but when you said it, you got to think about that, and it's true. Like, what do you see about him? And my journey with really diving into the possibility of ultimate reconciliation and all that stuff. I was talking to somebody about it. He said, man, you know what? I just know God's going to work it out. I just have to introduce people to Jesus. We've always been evangelists at heart. That's always been our thing. And kind of made me think, and I thought about it for a few days. I'm like, why am I so stuck on this? Because really, that's all I want to do is introduce people to Jesus too, right? That's all I want. That's all I've ever wanted to do. But my new kind of idea of what I think is going to happen for eternity has changed who I'm introducing people to, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And so I think that's why it's so important to me. Like if you're a jerk and I'm like, I just want to introduce people to Chris, but you're a jerk, it wouldn't be as fun as if I knew that you're a good guy and now I'm introducing people to Chris, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it can totally change. Well, it does change everything when you start talking about.
It changes everything. That is the foundation of how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. There's a lot of people that don't even love themselves because it all stems from a view of how they see God.
Yes.
You see him right, you can see yourself right.
Yes.
And it has to be seeing the Father through the lens of Christ, and that their natures are not dualistic, they're one. And and I use this example. I've used this in our church. I said, I can honestly tell where your theology is if you imagine and you picture Jesus walking physically into this church building. 99% of the people would be unafraid to run and jump in his arms.
Yes.
Now, if the Father walked in this building, there's probably a larger portion of the people in this room that would feel fear and run away from God.
Interesting.
Because they don't see him as a father. You approach Jesus with open arms, but the Father you run from.
Right.
And that has to be fixed in our church cultures. It has to be fixed.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what you guys are doing at the Summit Church. Like, you guys are going for it. You're preaching a message. And how, so when you started to change your message to, probably what it is today, have you had a lot of pushback? Or
I've had some. I've had, there's people that have left our church for sure over it that, and you get the emails, we don't preach on repentance enough. We're not, you're not telling, if you preach this message too loose, it's going to empower people to want to sin. And it's, you get those kind of crowds and people that, you need to preach on holiness and all those things are a part of the package, but it's at a different format now. I don't view it the same as I once did, because it's not about my works that make me holy. I had a guy tell me one time, you keep preaching this righteousness message and, you're making it like everybody's righteous. And I'm like, they are, if they're in Christ. He's like, you don't think people grow in different levels of righteousness? I said, no, when you are born again and you have this relationship with Jesus, the Father sees you no different than he sees his Son. You are 100% righteous, period. And we've had pushback from that. That's been probably the biggest pushback.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for people because I was talking to a friend of mine about a lot of this stuff, and he started to say some things. I said, "Dude, you sound like the older brother," and he kind of stopped in his tracks, and I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but as I listened to him, it was like, there's this, well, why should my neighbor get this? I've been plugging away at this for years and years. And I thought, what in the world is going on here? Like, I don't even understand this conversation anymore. Do you not see what you're saying here? People do get offended when you start getting into the righteousness and the fact that either it was done 2,000 years ago or it wasn't. I think we're made in the image of God. I think we're righteous. I think that we can grow more in the likeness of Him. I think we 100%. Can become 100%. More like, and that's a sanctification.
That's a character thing. That's a character sanctification thing. We can grow in sanctification for sure. Yeah. But righteousness, no. Like it's not like my son, if he messes up one day, is now you're half Mathis and you need to work really hard to become whole Mathis again. No, you are my son. You carry my DNA. Period. Yes. And that's what happens to us.
Well, you said in the series too, again, I think it was something to the effect of the definition of religion is try harder.
Try harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a quote that I stole from Damon Thompson, but it's one that I give generously into his ministry, so I can steal some of those from time to time. He's been a mentor in my life for many years, so I do want to give credit where credit's due. He did come out and say that, and it stuck with me. And it is something that we use as a foundation to try to get people to see what a religious spirit looks like in someone, or a religious attitude, whatever you want to call it. That religion has one message, and it's try harder.
Yes.
And it was like a light bulb went off. It's like most of my Christian journey in my early years was trying harder. Mm-hmm. I didn't fast long enough. I didn't pray hard enough. If I'm going to be a holy man of God, I have to do these things for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day. When now it's like, in a prayer room, I don't spend very much time in a prayer room. I'm a walking prayer room,
Yes.
I'm in my truck with Jesus. I'm in the grocery store with him. I'm in my deer blind with him. It's just a different viewpoint.
It doesn't change. Like I work a secular job right now, have for the last while until God calls me out, and then I'm out. I'll drop it like a hot potato. Yeah. But I've been the busiest over the last 6 months. I've been the busiest I've ever been in this business. And yet I'm more excited about Jesus than I've ever been, because it's not that, okay, I did my work and now I have to pray. It's just this constant awareness of being in Him.
That's a perfect word for it. Awareness. Yes. That's beautifully put. Awareness. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah. And knowing that He's there, whether I'm shoveling rocks in my backyard or in my prayer closet or on stage preaching or when this clicks, you realize He's always there, and he's there to hang out with you and to speak to you. And it's just, oh man, it's so much
beautiful.
Better than it used to be,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's the same as it used to be. It's just, I've realized it's better than it used to be. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So you also said, and I got to be careful what I say, because we'll get into a funny talk, but you said God's nearness comes with fire, not to burn you, but to restore you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. And we can get in trouble going down that path.
We can. We won't go down that path, but for now we'll keep it.
Yeah. We'll just keep it for what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
I think, again, it goes back to the redemptive, restorative nature of the Father. And I believe that statement, that is His nature 100% of the time. I got in trouble by making a statement. You're going to get a kick out of this. I did get some bad emails about this one. I said, I just want to throw this thought out there. What if Jesus, because I dabble in some of the other, just writings like the Gospel of Nicodemus and just some really, really good, writings that are out there from some of the early church fathers. But I said, what if Jesus, when He went to preach to the spirits in the prison, according to Peter, for those 3 days, went down there with a big agenda to get his friend Judas back?
Yes.
Buddy, you talk about ruffling some feathers.
Really?
Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, yeah, that's what I mean. His nature is always redemptive.
Yes.
Right? So, but people can't comprehend that.
Yeah, and I mean, he hung on the cross, and he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. So why wouldn't he want Judas back?
100%.
Like, it's when you start peeling back the layers, it just gets more beautiful and more beautiful and more
Nicodemus even writes when he went down there, according to Nicodemus, he walked into the spiritual world of prison, Hades, hell, whatever you want to call it, walked right up to Adam and Eve and grabbed them both by the wrists and led them out as leaders of a processional emptying hell.
Wow. Well, there's Eastern Orthodox paintings that depict that. I actually talked to my tattoo artist and I said, I want to get that on my, I've got some empty space here. And
sweet.
I haven't convinced him yet. He's a Christian guy, loves Jesus, but he said it'd be a hard one. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And he said it would be really tough to do that so it's clear on a tattoo. So I might have to get him to kind of dumb it down a bit or something. But
I say do it, man.
Yeah, oh yeah, buddy,
I got the Renaissance painting of Ezekiel in the Valley of Dry Bones on the top part of my arm.
Oh yes, I remember that one. Oh man, so that's I think that's a pretty standard Eastern Orthodox teaching.
Yeah. Teaching it is, yeah.
Because in the paintings he's holding their wrists and they represent all of humanity. Yep. And a lot of times in those paintings he's standing on a gate and under the gate is the enemy and there's keys in the ground which represent the key. It's beautiful. When you start to see what else is out there and you realize that our thoughts on how to read scripture is really not that old. That's one of the things that blew me away is when I started to get outside. Like I thought I was really I was really open-minded because I'm like, the Baptists have some of it and the Pentecostals have some of it. And, we're revivalists and, the Presbyterian have some. And when I started to step back, I realized every single one of those are still after the Reformation. They're all only 500 years old or less.
100%.
And then when I started to get into the history of the church, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, there's 1,500 years of church history that no one ever told me about. I mean, it's my own fault. I should have went looking. I'm not pointing the finger and placing blame, but man, there's just so much beautiful.
But I think that's the bubble though that charismatics find themselves in.
Yes.
Is we don't get outside of that. And I think we're afraid to go deep and actually, check your brain at the door type, attitudes,
Yes.
if it's not in the charismatic world, and we don't want anything to do with it. And I've just kind of resisted that tradition a little bit. And so I want to know more. I want to grow. What did these early fathers have that, that we didn't, that we don't? I want to dive into that, study their life.
I mean, I think of things on a really simple level. And this is kind of where I'm at right now. Let's say you wrote a book. Yeah. And you say, Ken, I'm going to spend the next 3.5 years traveling around. I'm going to preach this book. I want you to come with me and just be with me. So you and I travel for 3.5 years. I'm just sitting under your teaching. You're teaching your book. You're talking about line by line, and then you pass away. There's a good chance that I'll probably have a better idea of what you meant in your book than somebody 2,000 years and multiple countries away and different language changes than because I was there, right? And
it's a great way to put it.
We have we have writings that are a generation or two away from Christ that we can, I mean, obviously the Gospels, but even beyond that, I think like 3 generations away from Jesus. And these were not lukewarm Christians. These were guys that devoted their life probably every minute of every waking hour to get the gospel out. That's why I think the church fathers are so important.
I agree.
And the majority of our theology came from 500 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm not saying we have to toss that all out either, but man, it's just so beautiful. Like I've never been so excited about Jesus all my life. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out part 1 of my chat with Chris Mathis. I really encourage you to stop back in and check out part 2 that'll be dropping next Thursday. You guys are amazing. Have the greatest day ever.
Thanks for listening to Jesus the Legend. If this episode spoke to your heart, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who would be encouraged by the message. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue the conversation about the beauty of Jesus and how the gospel is even better than we could ever imagine.